Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wisdom Seeker Live. Way to hopefully start off a great week and look forward to spending a little time with everyone in the next bit and talk about hopefully a topic and seek wisdom together on it. Wanted to remind everyone to be sure that you tell us where you're joining from, and as always, want to hear your comments and your questions via the comments section. It's a lot more interesting if you will contribute and join in. So look forward to that. As always, when we start our session, like to give background on what we believe wisdom means as part of Wisdom Seeker, and look forward to that too. Apologize, I'm had a little difficulty this morning, so I'm trying to play a little catch up. And excuse me. What we see wisdom as part of the Wisdom Seeker Live podcast is that it's a journey, and it begins with knowledge, and whatever knowledge we get, whether formally, informally, hopefully we're seeking to get knowledge on a regular basis as part of our daily life. But it's not our stopping point, and it's certainly not where we find our power in life. And then from there, our next step is understanding. And understanding is where we begin to take knowledge and begin to apply it in our lives to different situations. And so we get that knowledge and begin to find solutions, solve problems, and make application of it. And so with that, we also usually are getting experience and just taking that next step and taking it deeper and personalizing the knowledge we've gained. And then the most important step in this journey or process to wisdom is going from knowledge, understanding, then to wisdom. And that is about perspective. It's about seeing, about seeing a much bigger perspective, seeing things that are beyond just our personal needs and thoughts. And it's about seeing how our lives and our choices affect others, how they impact others by what we do and say. And for those of us that are of a spiritual bent, that is the way we express that is that we are seeing things through God's eyes. So that's kind of our perspective on wisdom, and appreciate everyone being here. And so let's try to hit on our topic for today. The question is about our focus. And the question is our focus on the journey or the destination. Before we get started into things too far, I want to welcome those here with us. And I apologize if I mispronounce your name. I'm going to do the best I can. But welcome to Kawisa and Sharon and Kifa. Let's see, I believe that's everyone for the moment. Glad to have you with us. Look forward to hearing your comments and questions as we go along. And appreciate you being here. So the question is should our focus be, or is it wise to focus in more on the journey or the destination. And one of the things that I have learned over the years is that we really have quite often have little control over our destination, but we can certainly impact the journey along the way. Another way I like to express it is that outcome driven versus the process, and I think it's a wiser approach if we approach it focused in on the journey or the process, because that we have a greater chance of impacting and controlling. And one of the things that I put on the graphic for the event was what called a bucket exercise, and encourage you to consider bucket exercise as part of your regular life and daily habits. The question becomes what we can control, what we can influence, and what we need to let go of. And that is a good exercise for us on a regular basis, because that helps us to address and avoid stress that is unnecessary in our life. And it also helps us to begin to get wisdom on what we can influence and affect, which generally speaking goes back to the original premise that we can likely not impact the outcome or the destination, but we can impact the journey along the way. And the graphic that is there is one where you ask yourself a series of questions about things so that you can determine the things that you can have effect on, and the things that you cannot. It's best to let go of those things. And so you ask the question of any choices, any circumstances, any decisions. The question is, can I control it? And if you can't control it, then the thing to do is to move it along in this process. And the next question that we will ask ourselves is, can I influence it? And if we cannot, then we move it along. If we can control or influence it, then we need to make a plan to control or influence it, and then take action based on the plan. But if you can't control it and influence it, the third step is to let it go. And because we spend a lot of time and energy trying to consider or think about or worry about things that we can't control or influence, and it causes us trouble in terms of being able to have the energy and resources to be able to deal with the things we can control and influence. And it becomes a real challenge. In fact, it causes some of us to be very overwhelmed, because we're using so much energy and effort on things we can't control or influence that we have little left to deal with the things that we can. So it's a process, and along the way, we need the wisdom to know what can we control, what can we influence, and what do we need to let go of. It's real important to us. And so I think something that I've gleaned over the years is that we need to be more focused on our journey or the process that we're working through, because those are the things we're more likely to impact and affect in our lives, and do so with the greatest amount of success and the least amount of energy and resources. So I just encourage you to really go through that exercise. And one of the times that you can do that is through doing what I call our 40-day challenge. Was something that we initiated from the first episode of Wisdom Seeker Live, and that is that we remove ourselves from distractions that keep us from being able to focus on what we should. And that may be some kind of a habit. It could be social media. It could be time spent watching TV, live TV, and news. Whatever is a distraction for us, we make it a choice to step away from that, at least for a time. And then once we have removed the distraction, we have additional time. And with that additional time, we make a purposeful effort to observe what's going on inside of us and outside of us, and observe what is going on around us. It's quite interesting, and I don't know if any of you have ever experienced this. I think many do, and that is we get so busy in our lives and we get so caught up in chasing whatever and going through the motions that we don't even know and see consciously things happening around us. I think the one example for me that made me really start coming to terms with this is I was out driving on a road near my home and doing my thing, and I had someone ask me, well, have they done this or that on that roadway? And it's something that would be very obvious. It had to do with some maintenance and changes on this particular road. And as I thought about that, I thought, I don't know if they have been doing this or not, if they have done this maintenance or change, because I'm so busy doing other things that I haven't observed. And so the power of stopping or making a conscious effort to observe is important. And so the second step in this process that we talk about is after we remove distractions or get away from them, the second step is start observing. And then as we observe, the next goal is that we begin to try to seek out wisdom about the things we observe. How am I responding? Am I trying to determine outcomes? Am I trying to determine destination when really I'm not able to? But whereas I could be controlling and influencing the journey along the way. And so it's real important to consider that process. But our focus needs to be on the things that we can control and influence the most. And the things we cannot, we need to let go of. We need to go through that process. And I believe if most of us, if we take the time and consider, we will find that the key is to be focused in on our journey in life, and to really be making choices and decisions based on the journey, not just the destination. This is such an important topic and something to consider that I think it even affects our view of success. We get caught up in what's going on around us, and we start looking for the destination. And in the destination, in some cases, is what am I going to achieve? What is the goal, if you will, that I'm going to have happen? And the problem is that when we don't reach that goal, especially in the time frame that we think of, we become defeated. And what we have to realize is that that is about focusing on the destination, the reward, if you will. And when we do that, it can be very discouraging and defeating. Whereas if we look at the daily steps, the daily choices, the daily actions that we make, and focus in on that to make those well, then we have a greater chance of achieving or moving forward. And when we make those daily steps, make those daily choices, and keep going, that's really where true success is found. It's not in the reward that we're after, because again, it's unfortunately quite often we can't control that, especially the timing. That becomes a real question or challenge. And what happens is many of us get discouraged because the timing doesn't work out the way we hope it will. And we want to give up because we haven't gotten to our destination in the timing that we want. Now, please don't misunderstand. It is important that we consider and plan. That is truly, truly important. The way I like to express it at times is we plan as if we are, it's all on us to happen. But the other element is that we have to have trust that the things we can't control and influence, that those will be taken care of. And of course, for those of us that are of a spiritual bent, the way we look at it is that what we can't control and influence, we have to turn over to and put it in God's hands and trust that He will work those things out. And when we begin to do that, there's a lot of freedom in it, that we can move forward, and it keeps us from becoming discouraged over things that we can't control and influence. And so focusing on the journey, the day-to-day, the steps we take, when we are in the midst of that and we fail, which we're going to, that's part of the process. If we're not failing on some level at some point, we're not really trying. We're not extending ourselves and putting ourselves out there and risking. But if we're focused on the journey, we don't look at the destination and not arriving there as failure. What we look at is our failures along the way when we make a wrong choice and have to correct. The key, and we talk about this a lot on a lot of social media and all, and that is, failure is not about falling down or making a mistake. Failure is not getting up after we fall down. And that's such an important part of this whole thought process. And that's why there is such a great deal of wisdom and value in focusing in on our journey. Because when we do that, when we fall, when we make a mistake, we even have a failure, we then look at it and consider it. In fact, go back to that original exercise of getting away from distractions and then observe and seek wisdom about what caused us to fail. Where was our mistake? What was our bad choice? And then seek out wisdom on how to get back up and move forward towards our original vision, if you will. And that's, again, another part of this whole process is having a life vision that we operate from. Too many of us, we're the closest thing we have to vision is some big goals in our life, but even that is not our vision. Something else. So the question we keep coming back to is the wise focus should it be on our journey or our destination? And I believe that it is wisest to focus on our journey, because our journey is uh, where we have the greatest chance of influence and control in our life, not on the destination. Welcome aboard, Richard. Glad to have you. Thanks for the kind comment. And by the way, those of you watching, I encourage you to step in and ask questions, make comments, because it makes it much more interesting than my just sitting here sharing. I don't mind sharing because that's why I'm here. But I love to hear from you in the audience, to hear your comments, your thoughts, your experiences, because part of the goal of Wisdom Seeker Live is that we gain wisdom from each other, not just from me. So encourage you to share your thoughts. But focusing in on the journey is such a key. That's where we're wisest to focus, rather than on always focusing on the destination or end result or reward or whatever. The great thing about it, though, is that as we focus on the journey and we make wise choices relative to our journey, then ultimately we will get to an outcome, a reward, and should be a great reward if we keep moving forward and keep learning and gaining wisdom as we make choices to make better choices. And as we do that, again, remember that these choices we do not make in isolation. It's more than just how it impacts us in our lives. It's how it impacts the lives of others as well, those around us, because it does. It always will. And that's part of the wisdom we gain, is that that understanding or realization of how we impact others and how we impact our lives by our choices. I was talking to a friend over the weekend, and we were kind of bemoaning that we don't have a lot of common sense left in the world, and as the old saying goes, common sense ain't so common anymore. And I believe that the reason that has occurred is that we no longer make seeking wisdom a priority in our cultures. We make gaining knowledge a priority. That's a big one. And part of it is there was a time along the way that it was some promoted that knowledge is power. And the challenge is, I don't think that knowledge is truly our power, because I may have all kinds of knowledge of how to do things, but if I don't or can't do those things with the knowledge I have, what power is there in that? And so, again, we need to strive towards gaining the wisdom. And that's a challenge at times, because gaining wisdom can be a painful process at moments, because we have to learn from mistakes, and that includes accepting the mistakes we made and figuring out how to overcome them, and most importantly, how not to give up and quit, because that's when we truly fail. If we make a mistake, fall, learn from it, get up, gain wisdom, and move forward, we have not failed. May have had a failure, but we haven't failed. The only way that we truly fail or become a failure is when Okay, let's see here. I'm hoping that we're back online. Let's see here. Let me check this. My apologies. It looks like we're back live. I apologize. It looked like I had an internet ERP along the way. But I think we're back live. If someone on the stream would let me know if you are still seeing things going on, and as the technical problem occurred, I just noticed my good friend Dr. Favor is here with us and makes a good comment. Let me see if I can bring it up. Let's see here. Is everyone on the stream seeing me? Sharon Kawasa, Kawisa, Richard, Dr. Favor, are you still seeing the live stream? If so, would you let me know? And so that I can know if I'm still streaming. Okay, I'm seeing some. Okay, good. All right. Very good. Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate it. And what Dr. Favor had to say was journey is the process while destination is the kismet purpose. That's the driving force. Our focus should be on how to scale through. So it takes 3Ds of destiny to win forward, decision, discipline, and destination. Okay. Now I'm seeing your responses. Thank you. And I hope that Dr. Favor heard that shout out because I am. There you are, Dr. Favor. Now it looks like we're functioning again. Thank you for your patience. I'm not sure what happened, but yes, what Dr. Favor shared is some additional insight that's helpful, and that is decision, discipline, and destination. And those are all primarily focused on our journey and what we can control and what we cannot. And as we make that focus our primary focus, then I think we are being wise in how we approach. Does that mean we don't consider destination? Of course we do. That's part of vision. That's where we're hopefully seeking to head out, but that's not our focus. Our focus is on our journey along the way, and that includes, as Dr. Favor said, excuse me, our decision and our discipline. Those are the things we can have more impact on. And so it's really a difference in focus. And by having a wise focus on our journey, we're more likely not to become discouraged and want to give up. Another way that I have found to express this concept that maybe helps me and maybe it'll help you is that we're not so focused on outcomes, but rather being available and obedient, and that's speaking in terms of following God's direction in our lives. Or another way to look at it is that we are, as Dr. Favor says, we're making decisions and using discipline that is focused in on who we are, and what we should be about. But that's so important. Now, of course, that necessitates us taking time to have understanding of ourselves and to really gain that insight, because once we can understand ourselves and focus in on being who we are designed to be, then we are much more likely to be successful. A lot of people and cultures are very busy seeking out things that are not even in line with who they are, who they're designed to be. And so a part of this whole process and the journey, hopefully, is that we are trying to find out who we are and what is our purpose. And that becomes an important part of the journey. And from there, once we begin to understand those things, which I like to refer to as our design, then we can establish and begin to have focus on what is our vision in our life, that why, that purpose. And when we get that and we can get clarity and understanding, that becomes the direction we move in and affects the choices we make in all regards. And but once we've established vision, we then want to consider our mission. How do we move in that direction in moving towards our vision? And then the other part of this whole process along the way is, what are our essential values and our core values. So if once we begin to understand who we are, who we're designed to be, and then we begin to develop our vision and our mission and values, that we can then be effective in moving forward. Got a comment from Kawisa. Let's see. Kawisa says that me and kids at the orphanage home, Roots of Faith Foundation, we really appreciate the knowledge. May the Lord continue blessing upon you and everyone who's listening. Thank you for that. And I hope that you find value both for yourself and the children. And by the way, I think part of the problem that we face today is we no longer focus on wisdom with our children. Wisdom doesn't have to wait till we have gray hair. Wisdom can be gained now. It can be gained by young people if we are helping them in that direction. And that's something that we as parents and grandparents need to focus in on, is as they journey to help them seek and find wisdom. Let's see. Richard has a question, I believe, or a comment. Where a job is concerned, it can be difficult to concentrate on the journey, since one may be required to reach a destination or outcome sooner than may be reasonable. I certainly understand that, Richard, especially in our culture today. A lot of pressure to perform and produce, and unfortunately we have to do it with quite often with less than before. But what again, it's, you can say, well, which is first, the chicken or the egg or whatever. But if we are going to have the best chance of being able to reach our destination, we've got to focus on our journey getting there. And the difference between focusing on the journey and the destination has to do with our mindset and even our degree of hope and encouragement. And focusing in on the journey is a way to help us do that, because by focusing in on the journey along the way, we begin to see our successes, and those successes encourage us to keep going and not give up. When we get focused on the destination and we're not getting there, then it's real easy to become discouraged and frustrated and want to give up. So, at the end of the day, we're going to be headed towards a vision, our purpose, no doubt about it. It has to do with focus, though. If we're always focusing on that end rather than the process along the way, when we fail, when we fall, it's easy to get discouraged. Whereas if we're focused on the journey, and we can stand back up when we fall, then it helps us stay encouraged. It helps us to feel accomplished even when we haven't gotten to that destination. So I appreciate that's a real struggle that we deal with in work, is that there are things even in that we can't control and influence, and but yet we are pressured to focus in on that. And that's because, unfortunately, in the workplace anymore, there isn't the leadership, and even there isn't those in the leadership roles who seek out wisdom as well. Let's see here. Dr. Favor wants to add another part in there, and that he says, please permit me to add determination. Indeed, a part of that, of this process of journeying along life and even in gaining wisdom, is determination. And part of gaining the wisdom is the willingness to keep pressing through till we begin to see that bigger picture. Because at moments as we journey along the way, what we do see is limited. And then we have to continue pressing forward, and determination is a part of that process. Even though we can't always see the destination or understand what the outcome is or will be, that we have to stay determined. We have to say, okay, I still know that this is me, and this is why I'm here, and this is my purpose in being here. And I can't get a long-term picture of it for the moment, but I know that I need to keep moving forward. And so I stay determined and make choices based on what I do know. And sometimes we have to, there's a saying that I don't know where it originated, but I know that the principle of the saying comes from the Bible, and that is that we walk in the light that we have. We don't walk in what we don't have. And sometimes, especially at darker times in our lives, the light that we have is limited, and therefore the sight ahead of us is limited as well. So we have to make choices based on what we see at that point, and to move forward. And part of that is determination. Thanks, Richard. I understand. Hope that have a great day and a great week. And this concept of walking in the light that we have is something that I really came to terms with in my military training, because there would be times that we would have to be doing night searching, because one of the things for what we did in my military experience was search and rescue to find lost or hurt people. And sometimes that required doing so at night. And I don't know if any of you've ever experienced trying to travel on foot at night in areas that you may not know. And the challenge is, and what happens is that the view you have and the information on making decisions about direction and steps and so on is limited to what your flashlight or other means of illumination provide you, which at night on a trail in a place you don't know, you may only be able to see a few feet in front of you. So at that point, your focus is on what you can see and making your choices based on what you see, and not worrying about, am I necessarily going to make, for example, be headed in the direction that is the most expedient or easy or whatever, but rather make a decision to move forward based on what I can see and the light that I have at that particular moment. And that's the principle of walking and journeying in the light that we have at a given point. And on better days, better circumstances, we walk in the daylight and we see, way ahead and can consider that. But we also have to journey through the dark or night of our life at times too. And then we need those principles to stay on course or to stay moving. And that includes our decisions and staying determined to keep moving and if we do that well, the chances are we're still going to be headed in the direction we need to, or we'll be able to correct because we're aware and making choices based on the light that we do have. So again, focus on your journey, because at times you won't be able to see the destination. And also controlling especially the timing on reaching our destination becomes a challenge. Very often we have little control over that, but yet we spend an awful lot of time worrying about it, stressing over it, and becoming anxious. When we do that, it robs us of our energy. It robs us of our hope and robs us of our joy. Let's see. Sharon's got a comment. Kevin, as you know, my husband is very ill. My focus was to keep him well. In my journey, where I have always been very quiet and listened to the doctors, I found I had to take charge and do what I felt was right to keep him alive. I've never before been assertive, but I learned to stand up for what you believe and take charge. Yes, Sharon, I understand that. And it can be hard, but taking charge of our journey is such an important thing. We may not be able to control the timing and even the exact destination that we're headed towards, but we can affect the journey along the way by taking charge and making choices. And taking charge, by the way, is a form of self-discipline. And it's part of a process of moving forward wisely is to develop and use self-discipline, because when we do that, we are taking out some of the factors of our own self as far as problems and things that can cause us defeat. And Sharon, I continue to pray for you and your husband, because I know that's a journey that you're on and it's a struggle. But remember to focus on the journey, and the destination will take care of itself. Again, the question we started the program off is the wise focus on our journey or our destination? It doesn't mean that we don't have to deal with both. Please understand that we have to be about the journey, but we need to have direction of the destination or our vision, but always focusing on the outcome of our vision, of our journey, can be very discouraging, because we cannot quite often control it, whereas we can control the steps of our journey along the way. Let's see. Sharon has a further comment. I always had believed, as my parents did, that the doctor was always right. In our case, he wasn't, so I did. Once I got the guts to do that, my husband felt better. Thank you so much, Kevin. God has helped me as always along the way. Well, that's good news, Sharon. And I'm going to make a comment, and I don't mean to offend anyone in this comment, but our current medical community, and bear in mind, I have family that are part of the medical community, and they're very hardworking, caring, smart people. But the medical community in general is something that we need to be very, let's say, thoughtful and considerate of, because we have over the years been led to believe that the medical world is mostly science. And part of the wisdom I believe I've gained along the way is that most of the medical world that we have is more about art and less about science. And therefore, if we're going to be wise, we don't need to assume that they have exact science in what they're doing. Again, please understand, I have many friends that are in the medical community. They're hardworking. They are trying to do good. But again, the medical system that we have developed has a challenge in that it thinks that it's more capable than it is scientifically. And so just beware. And Sharon, I went through some of this recently with my mom and having to step in related to her care. And yes, it's an important part that we do that. And that's part of this concept at that point of focusing in on the journey. Yes, we want our loved ones to feel better and to even find healing, but that's the destination. And we may not be able to help them find that healing. But if we focus in on the journey and take charge and seek to be wise in our decisions and influence and effect on our journey, then ultimately they will certainly feel more better than what they would have if we don't. So the question, wise focus, journey or destination? Really believe that we need to focus in on the journey, which means as we go along, focusing in on who we are, what we are, and doing what we should and can relative to that, rather than focusing on the outcome, because outcomes are difficult and outcomes most times are outside of our control. But we can control the steps along the way, the journey that we're involved in. And it's also where we can find success and hope by focusing in on the journey. And when we make successful steps forward, celebrate those successes. When we fall, fail, make mistakes, and focus in on getting back up at that point, then again, we maintain hope, because we're not focused on how far we are from our destination, but how much we're moving forward in our journey. In fact, one of the exercises that I've heard and I think is helpful is when we actually look at where we came from. Now, we can't always be looking backwards because that's unwise, but occasionally we have to look backwards and go, okay, this is where I started and this is how far I've come, in order to be encouraged. And Sharon adds to her comment, says, folks, I think doctors are great, but sometimes when things go very wrong, you have to step in and take charge. Most doctors are wonderful. For me, I saved my husband's life when I stepped in. And she goes further to say, focusing in on the journey is so important. And so I am glad that it's resonating with some of you. I just, again, hope that we can do that. We can learn to be available and obedient to what our design is. And for us that are of a spiritual bent, again, that includes available and obedient to the will of our Creator, our God. And when we focus in on that, then the outcomes take care of themselves, because those are the parts that we have less impact, less influence, and less control of. And by changing our focus, it helps us to stay determined, as Dr. Dr. Favor suggested, is staying determined. And one of the ways to stay determined is to experience successes along the way and focus in on that. And by the way, by focusing on the journey, we're much more likely to gain wisdom and make better decisions each time as well. And the bigger perspective of wisdom is not the bigger perspective of where we're going, but it's in what's going on around us during the journey. And when we can do that, we have a greater chance of gaining that wisdom and begin to apply that wisdom for the next step. And that's why we want to seek wisdom regularly in our lives in every way possible. So I encourage you to focus in on the journey. Have a destination in mind. It's part of what we need, and that's our vision. But always focused in on our vision can be discouraging, because our vision must be large, must be bigger than ourselves to be effective. But if we're always focusing in on it and thinking about it, we can become discouraged. The vision that God's put in my life is to help people find and live their full potential. And that's everybody. And if I focus strictly in on that vision, I can get discouraged, because there's a lot of people that aren't finding and living their potential, and it could get discouraging. But I am stay hopeful by focusing in on the journey and the people that I impact along the way. And that helps me stay encouraged, and it helps me to stay focused on moving forward and determined to keep going. And so I hope that you will seek wisdom in focusing on the journey, and that your journey will begin to even get better, because if you're focused on the journey, gaining wisdom each step of the way, you gain wisdom from the last step and make a wiser choice in the next step to move forward. And that is so key. So thank you, everyone, for being here today. My apologies for the technical problem. I'm glad it seems to have worked out in spite of everything. So look forward to seeing you next week for another episode of Wisdom Seeker Live podcast. It's always Monday mornings at 8 a.m. Eastern, and we're actually going to have some guests come on board. We've got one scheduled now, talking to a couple of others, and it's always exciting to have a guest here, because it gives us an opportunity to hear their wisdom and their journey and grow and learn and gain from that, so that we don't always have to gain wisdom the hard way when we are surrounding ourselves with other wisdom seekers and learn from the wisdom they have picked up. So thank you, everyone. God bless. Have an amazing week, and hope you continue to be a wisdom seeker so that you can continue to move forward and making better choices. Thank you. God bless. We will see you hopefully next week at 8 o'clock Eastern here on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Take care. Bye.